for Commissioner Harden to come back before we get started. Thank you all for being here, and your patience. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you so much for being here. I am going to call the specially called meeting of the Metro Arts Board of Commission to order at 12:05. Before we get started, I do just want to do roll call really quickly, just to make sure that we have everyone who is here and just make sure that we have established quorum. Chair Love is here, Commissioner Lepowitz, here. Commissioner Harden, here. Commissioner Jester, Commissioner Neplin, here. Commissioner Wade, here. Commissioner Watts, here. Commissioner West. Here. So absent is Commissioner Bell, Commissioner McCoy, and Commissioner Nicholas Phillips. All right. Oh, and Commissioner Kurtz. Her name is right by mine. Yes. Okay. So thank you so much. We have established quorum. I do want to take the moment to, again, welcome everybody here. If you notice at our last commission meeting on the agenda, there was a note that was right above the agenda items. And I just want to make a note of what that is, why that's there. We haven't been made aware that we needed to include this in all of our agenda items. And I'm just going to read that just this first time, just verbatim, just so everyone is aware of that and what that means and what that is. And so pursuant to provisions Section 268030, the Metro Code of Laws, please take notice that decisions of the Arts Commission may be appealed to the Chancery Court of Davidson County for review under a common law writ of certiorari. I always get that word messed up. Cert. Any appeal must be filed within 60 days after entry of a final decision by the commission. Any person or other entity considering an appeal should consult with an attorney to ensure that time and procedural requirements are met. And so that is a statement that will be on all of our agenda items. And I just wanted to read that just so everyone knows what that is, because if you were not aware of that, it kind of just appeared on our agenda last time. And I just wanted to say that on the record, what that means and what that is. And so again, we have this special called meeting to discuss very specific things. But before we do that, we do want to go to public comment. And so you were able to sign in at the beginning. As a reminder, that public comment is 20 minutes total, and each person will have 2 minutes each. And so, Vivian, do we have members who have signed in from the public to comment today?
Yes, we do. We have 4. Mike. Oh. We have 4. Are we ready?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. The first person we have is Will Schutz. And you can come to this podium here. And I'll let you know when your time starts. Give me like 2 seconds.
Good afternoon, commissioners. My name is Will Schutz, and I am here with Nashville Opera as the Director of Marketing and PR. The Nashville arts community, which is comprised of organizations and artists numbering in the thousands, who should be focused on the work of performing and dancing and singing and sculpting and painting and giving everyone in this city a broader access to the transformational power of art. This community has been turned into a circular firing squad because Daniel Singh made promises to everyone without a plan to honor those promises. As a result, many of us lost confidence in Metro Arts. I stand here on behalf of an organization that is ready to move on. I think we are all ready to move on in a positive direction, with an executive director who's committed to the real work of inclusion, diversity, and equitable funding. Not someone who simply tells everyone what they want to hear and makes promises that cannot be kept. When confidence in Metro Arts is restored, we can all work together to advocate for more funding for the arts from Metro Council, which we've wanted to do all along. That's the work that we're looking forward to. Thank you.
All right, next we have on the list, Mr. Mount Boyd. Again, those for public comment, I'll let you know when you have 1 minute left. And your time starts now.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm happy to be here again today. I'm trying to be happy to be here. I just have 2 pieces of advice for you today. Please tell the truth and do not be afraid. If you all do not tell the truth, Director Singh will rewrite the narrative that this commission, that this city was not committed to equity. And so we need you to tell the truth about why Director Singh needs to go. Commissioner Jester, I appreciated so much your motion that you made last week. I was appalled that no one seconded, but you need to tell the truth about why we didn't get the ABC grant. Executive Director Pope from the Tennessee Arts Commission, as I understand, has reached out to Director Singh multiple times with no response. Chair Love, you are very aware of the ineptitude of this leadership. You've experienced it yourself. We need to tell the truth about why he's not functioning, why Director Singh is not functioning well. Commissioner West, you know full well why murals won't fund it, because he tried to move them to the public art program. That's in the Wright report. You wrote a long email and cited code about why that's not possible. If we don't tell the truth, he will write the narrative and he will be on to do this DEI work in the next city and harm more staff and more people. We need y'all to tell the truth. It is time for Director Singh to move on. It is time for us to have equity, and that is in funding and in practice. That's in opportunities for artists. There's many things that include equity in this work, and it's not just money. Commissioner Harding, you were here and you've been through the chaos as an employee. You have to resonate and recognize some of the statements that were made at the last meeting, and they have to relate to the toxic environment Metro Arts. That is long work, that is hard work, but is work that must be done. Thank y'all for being here today. I have a lot more things I want to say, but I just want to leave you with, please tell the truth. Thank you.
Right. Next, we have Ms. Lydia Youssef. Sorry about that. And your time starts now.
Growing up, my mother said, anyone who hates your brother, don't be a fool, hates you too. And that was my first teaching in solidarity. And I learned that the most effective way to stop a bully or an oppressor is to speak up and stand up for someone else. So it surprised me when people asked me, oh, you're friends with Daniel Singh? It was odd because in an individualistic culture, like in the United States, many assume that to defend someone, you have to know them well, you have to be friends, and you have to stand to benefit. There wasn't a collectivist mindset. In the Coptic Church, we are constantly told that we are one body, and that if one is in pain, like the eye, the others suffer as well. That we rejoice with those who rejoice, and we mourn with those who mourn, because we are one body. I don't have to like you to know that when someone bullies you, it's wrong. And I don't have to like you to see your humanity. It's because of this ethos that I carry that I was stunned when McCoy motioned to fire Dana Pearsons and also added labor to Sydney Davis without raising her pay. I was also stunned that staff, seeing what the commission had done to the community and to Daniel Singh, were happy to go on the microphone and center themselves, especially last week when the white commissioners literally washed their hands of the responsibility, saying, oh, we believe Daniel Singh is a good person, yada yada. But the staff don't like him, and the staff became legal fodder for what's about to happen. These white people, Dietz, Crumbo, the white commissioners, don't care about you. They are using the staff to get to us and to defund us again for a second year. I was even stunned to hear Sydney Davis say that the solution to a decades-long program is to privatize it and outsource it from the government. My thought was, instead of asking for additional staff assistant to work through grants, Davis is saying to someone else that someone else can do her job better.
Next person we have is Mr. Craig Robinson. All right. Your time starts now.
Hi, my name is Craig Bardo with the Party for Socialism and Liberation. Next month, our candidates for the White House, Claudia De La Cruz and Karina Garcia, begin their campaign in Tennessee. To join us or to learn more, follow us at PSL Nashville. The arts oligarchy has sought to characterize the issues here as being about race. Of course that's true, because as Fisk University graduate W.E.B. Du Bois explained, there's property value in whiteness baked into America. But I'm here to talk about the arts oligarchy and class war. The arts oligarchy is a cooperative power structure that not only accrues benefits to itself, like its counterparts in industry, it limits the life possibilities of class enemies. You who are the artists, who were awarded funding or that has been denied or delayed, are their class enemies. At the center of this conflict is Wallace Dietz and Metro Law, who's been on the wrong side of class struggle during his entire tenure. The stadium project, the overthrow of the community oversight board, and now even Metro Arts. So I say to the artists, those of you who have decided to join together, this is only the beginning. Fight back. Welcome to the revolution.
That concludes our public comment.
Thank you, Vivian, and thank you to our participants who made public comments today. And just want to say, as you can hear, there was 4 very distinct opinions and voices. And so I want to say we do hear you. We read your emails. We see your emails. We may not be able to reply to all of them in a timely manner, but we do see them. We see your tweets. We see your reels. We see your lives. We hear you when you make your public comment, because oftentimes you alert us to things that we just were not aware of. And so we do appreciate that. And no matter what we do today, please know that everything that we do is going to be in the best interest of everyone who is involved. And we will make sure that procedurally we do what is best for everyone that is involved. And I just want to make sure that people understand that's where we're coming from. We want to do what's right. We will do what's right, whatever that may be. But procedurally, we will do it the correct way. And so, again, I want to thank everyone for being here, because this was not a regular meeting. And I do want to respect everyone's time, the commissioners, staff, the public who are here with us. And so I do want to turn the discussion over to Commissioner Watts to just discuss some of the updates that she has had. She has a report for us as it relates to HR and the status of our executive director, and then conversations after that will lead into what we will do with an interim director. And so I'll just turn it over to Commissioner Watts now.
Good afternoon, everyone. I have met with a number of people, and I think you may have something. I'll just sort of skim over it lightly, and after I'm finished, I'm going to introduce a few folks who also might answer any questions if we need them answered, because I understand there may be questions. On the 22nd, I met with Shannon Hall at Human Resources, Amanda Deaton Moyer with Finance, Macy Amos, and Tessa Ortiz Marsh, who are with Legal. Basically, many of them had seen the video, the meeting video. I was working on it, but I shared details, and specifically the motion we made relative to 2 issues. One was the status of the FMLA for Director Singh, and the other was what we needed to do in the event we moved to have an interim director. So those were the 2 issues that I'm bringing to you today. Director Singh is still on continuous FMLA. FMLA is up to 12 weeks for anyone who applies, and it can either be continuous or it can be intermittent. Director Singh was approved for 12 weeks, up to 12 weeks continuous leave. At the time, I think he's about 9 weeks in is what I understood based on my conversation, which means 3 weeks may be left on that. Human Resources at that time, or at least about a week or two before that, will communicate with Director Singh before the FMLA expires and let him know what the rules are. He will be required to, if he will be required to provide documentation indicating that his medical provider states he can perform the essential functions of his job before he can return to work. The commission might need to, based on conversations during that meeting, correct or clarify the April 18, 2024 motion to place the executive director on administrative leave with pay. Is it concurrent with FMLA, not concurrent with FMLA, or state a specific length? And that may be something we may want to discuss today. At the end of Director Singh's FMLA, he will need to, as I said, have a certification from his healthcare provider. All of this will be outlined and requested by Human Resources, and it is standard throughout based on the FMLA law itself. If he does not return or fails to respond, or if the medical certificate or related accommodation does not allow him to perform the essential duties, we have some things that we can do. Continue administrative leave with pay for a short specified period of time with a specific reason cited, or end employment. The interim executive director's process is simple. Interim directors are usually selected or appointed by the appointing authority if they can perform the functions of the job and are willing to be in the interim position. As the appointing authority for this position, the commission may simply vote to select an interim director at any meeting, or identify individuals who have an interest in the interim position as quickly as possible through a streamlined process. The chair or HR can make calls to determine if people are interested. This option may not allow for selection on a quick basis. It may take 2 to 3 weeks to do that. Things for us to consider today is how long and any other actions we may need to take. And this was the caveat that an official from HR may be in attendance to answer questions on the HR process. Well, Shannon Hall is here to answer questions, along with anyone else in that meeting. Tessa and Macy are both here as well from a legal perspective. So I'll try to answer any questions you may have. If not, I may defer to any of the people. And Amanda Deaton-Maury is here, that was in the meeting, to make sure that we are all on, that we understood what I thought I understood.
All right, thank you, Commissioner Watts. Before, I would like Ms. Hall to come up here because I have a feeling that there are some questions that we just may not be able to answer amongst ourselves. But are there any questions about the report that Commissioner Watts presented to us? One thing that I do know for certain that we will need to clarify how long administrative leave is going to be. And so I would just think about that. Make a suggestion, a motion, or whatever you'd like to do, just think about that. But while you're thinking about that, I do have a question for Ms. Hall, and it is surrounding length of time for admin leave. I think I know this, but just for the benefit of everyone, so we can all understand the same thing at the same time and hear it at the same time. When someone is placed on administrative leave while they're on FMLA, does that usually start when FMLA is over, or when would the timeline start for that? Was it immediate? Is it immediate, or do we have to wait until FMLA is over?
You do not have to wait until FMLA is over. I think that's at the discretion of the commission. Review of the commission meeting last week indicates that you guys put him on administrative leave with pay, which can absolutely run concurrent with his FMLA. So I view that as an action that has been taken by the board effective last Thursday. Right. And so that would be the pay component concurrent with his FMLA. that would allow the pay then to be administrative leave with pay rather than the use of his accrued sick time or vacation time, which would allow him to preserve those things to a later date. So I take, like, the action from the board seemed very clear that it was administrative leave with pay. I would expect that the staff would be running his pay as of last Thursday and forward until the commission took a different action. It can absolutely run concurrent with FMLA, and it would preserve any unused sick and vacation that he still has left available to him and hold those for a later date.
Thank you so much. Are there any other questions for Commissioner Jester? You have a question?
Yeah, is it fair to assume that another motion doesn't need to be made because unless Director Singh comes off FMLA, it's automatically concurrent with FMLA, correct?
I will say my view of what I viewed of the meeting last week, that was my assumption, but legal may want to provide clarity as to whether or not they think clarifying that intent is fair. That was how I took that, but it was not clear. I think the subsequent conversation as part of that discussion is what led me in my read of watching that video, but legal may advise you that in order to be crystal clear, you may want to clarify that motion, but that was the intent based on the conversation from the perspective of my viewing of that. But ultimately, it's the commission's job, and I think clarifying that is probably helpful.
Thank you.
I think we need to clarify it now to make sure that we're all on the same page that he is on admin leave with pay now.
Before we make a motion, should we talk about what that timeline looks like so we can include it in the motion?
Let me address that part of it now. When along with Abby Rubenfeld, I represented Commissioner Olivia Hill in the Vanderbilt transgender discrimination case, one of the big issues in that was that she was on paid administrative leave indefinitely. And it created a big problem for Vanderbilt. My recommendation, based on that experience, is that we don't get in that situation. My recommendation is we all know where this is going, all right? And I think we need to just go ahead and make the decision that we're going to terminate him.
I have a question. Have we determined that there is no information that we need to get from Director Singh before there is any change in his status, as in operations that we have not had for the last couple of months, information relative to the budget that was set forth before the council, specifics around that? So if we believe that there's information that we need from Director Singh before we make any final decisions around his employment, I'm making an assumption he would have to be off FMLA, but we could still talk to him while he's on administrative leave or hear from him relative to the things that we potentially need in order to move forward if we have an interim director that needs to get to work.
I mean, you're welcome to join me. I want to be at least clear. The medical certifications that have been submitted by Director Singh indicate that he qualifies for continuous FMLA. So I think my advice is that until such time as his medical provider substantiates that he can even do a portion, and we have had additional outreaches to him and his attorney asking for the clarification necessary on his intermittent FMLA request. Our last attempt was April 5th, helping to try to quantify very clearly what clarification we needed of what duties he could and couldn't do and when he could and couldn't do them. It's really kind of that simple. We gave him a form that we use here at Metro specifically for intermittent leave requests, and that was sent by our office on April 5th. We have not received a response since that time. So I think the short answer is He is on continuous FMLA. His medical certification is that. So I believe his continuous FMLA should continue for that reason, as afforded by those provisions under federal law. But his medical provider, until such time as he and his medical provider substantiate that he can do a portion of this work that you were asking him to do, I really think that he needs to continue on this FMLA path. I'm trying to answer your question.
That's
best I
helpful.
can. Okay.
It's clear to me that ultimately we won't have an opportunity to get whatever information, and at that point, it's moot. We probably just need to move forward. I just wanted to clarify. Could we have interaction with him? But in the absence of that, I understand. Thank you.
And Commissioner Wade, I think the other part of that is, would he be knowing where this is likely going? Would he even cooperate in providing information?
And I do want to hear from you, but can you say your name for the record when you do go? But
Certainly.
I think I heard something that I didn't hear an answer to, and I may have heard it incorrectly. If he's off FMLA and on administrative leave, can we communicate with him? And so, yeah.
Yes. There's a concept under the FMLA of interference, and the employer cannot interfere with the employee's right to leave. And asking someone to work while they are qualified for continuous leave would violate the interference concept. So, Commissioner Wade, you're right. There would not be an opportunity for this commission to ask him to do any work while he qualifies for leave. Now, if he were only on administrative leave and off FMLA, you certainly would control that process, and you could ask for certain information and work if it were only a matter of administrative leave. But you're not currently facing that circumstance.
Thank you. And that ultimately answers my question that we're going to move forward without that information, any information that we might need.
And if I also may comment on a comment that Commissioner Nefflin mentioned, I'm sorry, my eyes are not that great. You need to clarify that he's on administrative leave concurrent with FMLA. That's the big question. You've placed him on administrative leave with pay. It was unclear from the record that was running concurrently with the FMLA. Candidly, it doesn't make sense for it not to be. Administrative leave would only make sense if someone otherwise could be working. He otherwise can't be working because of the FMLA leave.
Thanks for that clarification. I understand now. So the recommendation is that his administrative leave would begin after FMLA ends?
Well, no, he would be.
Or that it's now?
It would be running concurrently.
Right
it's,
now.
as Shannon said, Ms. Hall said, it's the pay component to the otherwise unpaid FMLA, where if he wanted to be paid while out on FMLA, he would have to have accrued sick and or vacation to continue that pay component. What you've done is you've placed him on administrative leave with pay that allows him the benefit to preserve the sick and vacation accruals.
Got it. Thank you.
Commissioner Leibowitz.
I think this addresses what you were asking before, Commissioner Love, in terms of limits. We also didn't say anything when we voted last week about a length of time for administrative leave. Is there, and we've heard that, certainly without an end date or kind of unlimited may not be a best practice, right? But how does that usually go? Is that something we should also consider if we are voting to continue leave and to qualify that it's concurrent, also provide a term for that?
I think that's absolutely reasonable. And I don't think anything would prohibit if the commission needed to, at the date certain that you had said it's intended to do administrative leave with pay concurrent with his FMLA through the end of his FMLA period, it would still preserve the right for the commission to then decide at that time what the status of his employment or of that admin leave. I don't think anything would prohibit you guys from taking additional actions, whatever those were.
Okay, thank you. So I guess right now we can discuss, but I would welcome and entertain a motion to clarify that his administrative leave is concurrent with his FMLA, and if there is a specific time that we would like to place him on administrative leave. And so I welcome any motions to that. I saw Commissioner West first. Yes, and then I'll go to you. Yeah.
I have a question to, I guess, just to make sure what I'm hearing is correct. So at the time of Director Singh's FMLA ending, we still would need medical documentation for him to come back to his position, and that is running concurrently with his leave.
Yes, in order for an employee to return from a leave of absence, right?
You gotta have a
Metro requires there to be a certification, as do essentially all employers, that they are capable of returning to work and doing the essential functions of the job, as Commissioner Watts mentioned, either with or without a reasonable accommodation. And so that has to be a release to return that this body would receive from Director Singh's healthcare provider that originally placed him on leave.
Understood. Thank you so much.
Sure.
Commissioner Jester.
So if it's appropriate, I'm happy to restate the motion that I made last week. But before I do that, I think we should spend some time talking about exactly what it is we expect at the end of administrative leave. Because until we have that clear, I think we're just delaying the inevitable again.
Correct, yes. And so to Commissioner Wade, and this may not have been where she was going with this, but just hearing what she said, if we do want to hear from him, right now we will not ever be able to hear from him until he is off of FMLA. And so take that however you want to take that. If you want to get rid of somebody before we can even hear from them, that is your prerogative as commissioners, and that will be the will of the commission. If you do want to hear from him, just know that he would have to be off of FMLA to do that. So any motion or discussion that you have, make sure that it's with that in mind. And I did see Commissioner Wade, and so I want to go to her first, and then I'll go to you. Did you have something too? Okay. I'll go to you.
Commissioner Love, you are correct. I was trying to get to, is there an opportunity or a necessity to hear from him before making a change? And I'm also not convinced that we need to continue administrative leave, recognizing that there are still 3 weeks left in FMLA and we still will not have an opportunity to hear from him. It does not seem to me that any other decision relative to his employment is going to go beyond that FMLA. And so I don't know if there needs to be a different motion relative to removal of admin leave, because it is superfluous to me at this point. And I could be wrong on that, but it seems superfluous at this point. We are simply allowing him to accrue sick and vacation leave or pay.
May I want to make sure that I was not misunderstood. The concept of interference is the employer cannot request the information. If the employee chooses to do so on their own, they have every right to do that if they wish, based upon their consultation with their healthcare provider. Yeah, I want to do this, or their counsel, or whatever. If you want to hear from him, for example, in response to the report, you can't demand it, but you can't keep him from doing that if that's what he wants to do. So that would not be a violation of the interference concept if he did it on his own, but you can't demand it. So maybe that's already understood, but I just want to make
Definitely
sure.
understood, but also there have been overtures to receive information relative to FMLA. And so past experience would say to me, why would we then expect that anyone would just volunteer that information when certain information has already been requested? I believe, more than once, and that information has not been returned.
Right.
And we would simply be spinning wheels and kicking this down the line even further. It sounds like.
Understood.
To me.
Yes. Oh,
To Commissioner Wade's point, I think, looking around, I've done a lot of thinking about this, and I think I probably have the most institutional memory in terms of commission. And I would encourage everyone to go back to the November 2023 meeting. There were 5 points put forward by the commission, first an executive commission and then moved to full commission. They were regarding budget health, financial reports, leadership concerns, staff concerns, all related to Director Singh. And as Simone aptly pointed out, truth is important. And it's not that I don't feel that truth has been forthright. I just think that because of the way this body is put together, that full information has not been able to be put forward. So in light of that, we did make an action item for Director Singh to report back, I believe by the 15th of December, with many questions about operational, just basic leadership issues. And I just wanted to put that forward as we're talking about information he may have that would be relevant to now. I'd encourage us all to go back and see those pieces because we had, as a commission, we had been asking these questions of Director Singh well before all of this. And so I just want to be transparent and clear that I've been here for 6 years as a commissioner. I've been in the community for 20 years. And I'm seeing the real effects, not just with artists, but with the output to all the programs that serve. Somebody mentioned ABC. The fact that we've lost the ABC grant, some people may see it as a pass-through. I do not. I see kids that are losing education. I see families that are losing out on opportunities. I see artists and artisans that are losing out on education purposes. I'm seeing all of these things. So I just can't sit back and have knowledge prior to this body currently. And I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm just not able to do that unless we are in a forum like this. So I just want to put that out there.
thank you. I'm going to go to Commissioner Lefkowitz and then back to you. Yes.
And that is so helpful too, to think about the recognition that so many of us are new and have gone back and watched and read, and, trying to absorb kind of the history of this and what has been asked of him. In my mind, I had 2 things, in terms of thinking about Director Singh and his performance, and one was the Luther Wright report, and then the other was, and that related to kind of the initial HR issues and things that were in the first letter from Director Crumbo after we came on. And then the second thing was the internal audit, and I had that as a kind of end date. So in my mind, I've had these 2 pieces of information. I feel like I have one piece, and that has provided me with a lot of data for my own consideration. But I don't know to what extent we want to think about, do we wait to take further action for an audit? It's hard to say what that end date would be, right? Because we don't know when it's going to be. So I just want to say that in terms of thinking about those 2 kind of data points that I have had in my mind. I'm not married to those, but I've just had those in my mind.
And I want to respond to Commissioner Wade. There is nothing at this point that Director Singh could provide to me to change my opinion that he is simply a bad leader for this organization. Nothing. There is so much chaos in the arts community. There is so much chaos in the staff. There is so much chaos with regard to our finances. And it all ties back to Director Singh. And I think So again, there's nothing that he can say at this point, if he were to even provide information, which I agree he's failed to do in the past, that would change my opinion that he is a bad leader. And I would encourage all of us to have the courage, knowing that the public certain members of the public are going to attack us, but to go ahead and do what needs to be done for the benefit of arts in Nashville.
So to clarify, I hope that no one in the room understood my questions to be about Director Singh coming to plead his case that he's a great leader. Not at all. I have enough information and enough interaction with staff and understand the things that some of those staff have gone through to understand that, to be clear, that is not my request. My request really is about when we determine who an interim director is, they get to come into this quagmire. And we need to make sure that we do all we can to support that person coming into this quagmire, because there are 15-ish, however many-ish staff that are then going to have a leader. And they're going to have a leader that they need to be able to trust, that is able to do the work, and is able to do so in the midst of all of these things going on. So please don't hear me say that I'm trying to give Director Singh an opportunity to come in and plead his case that he is the right leader for this position. Not that. It simply is about really how do we move forward and how do we move forward well, which is one of the reasons I did not second the motion last week. It is unclear until after Commissioner Watts had the conversations that she's had recently about what that looks like. It is unclear who those people could be, other than in the last couple of days. We've gotten a little bit of information about who those people could be. Some very well qualified to do it, and we still need to make sure that they are prepared. Unlike a lot of us up here on this dais have been to be able to do a good job. Yes, we are all ready to move on. We are all very clear about lots of things at this table, but one of them is that we can't make decisions here that then we go back to our regular jobs, and the people that have to work out there at Metro Southeast are out there roiling and broiling and don't understand how they're going to be able to work every other day. That's it. I am not at all interested in anything other than getting good quality information so that when we do make a decision, we are able to move forward and move forward without looking backward toward the director, but looking backward toward how can we make what has happened not happen again. We can't set anybody else up to not be able to do that. That's all. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you.
Commissioner Lefowitz.
I also want to say, too, and this has been said before, that, this did not begin with Director Singh, that these issues are internal, and we keep struggling with the external is always vulnerable if we're not tending to the internal, and this has gone on for years. So this did not begin with Director Singh. What I'm talking about is Director Singh's response, because that's all we can do, right, is to respond to what is in front of us. I'm very concerned about the response.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Commissioner Watts.
There are several things that I would love to have happen here today, and that is that all of this is siloed. It's not. It's not a siloed issue. It is a complex issue. And it is ripe with a lot of things that whatever decisions we make, they're going to come back to bite us on a continuous basis, because we have 2 complaints outstanding, not 1, 2. We have FMLA, which is a different issue. And then we have the Luther Wright report, which is also a different issue. So we've got those. And then we have day-to-day operations, which is the bigger issue of where are we going and what policies are we trying to put into place moving forward. But all of that really does require us to get good information about what is going on in the organization. And the one thing I've found as I've done this oversight is while there's a lot of information, there's a lot of unknowns for those who are new on this body as to what is going on from a financial perspective and other perspectives, that there have been enough memos and issues issued for me to determine what's fact or true. There's a lot of innuendo and a lot of stuff we've received. So unlike most folk, I'm not as convinced as I would like to be, that it's as clear as it is. It's a lot of mud. And I think we have to understand that, because whatever we decide, I think we're going to have some things that are going to come back on an ongoing basis. And this is not something that happens with just one decision. It's going to be multiple decisions over the next months and probably over the next year that we're going to grapple with, which will bring this back to us. So I don't want us to wrap ourselves in the illusion that any of this is going to be instantly solved by one action. And so, but I'm hearing us saying we want to do X or Y. We're doing all this. So I just think we just need to clarify all of that and just look at what that means and where we're going and how we're going. I think I'm the person that asked for Commissioner Singh's response to the Luther Wright report, because I think it was a due process issue, and we were told he couldn't do that because of his status in FMLA. That's how we get on a lot of this FMLA. So we're there. But there are other issues out there as well, and I've not talked to any staff. I'll be real honest, I have not. I've done complaints most of my 40-plus years, and I stay out of the complaint business unless it's official. And so I don't have an official complaint or complaints from any of the other staff. I've heard things. I'm not on social media, so I don't read a lot of stuff either. That's the good news. So, but I think we need to do that. Whatever we decide today, whether it's a motion to clarify, because I just brought back stuff about two things, interim director and what we need to clarify in the motion. It says we may need to clarify. If we don't think we need to clarify it, we don't have to clarify it. That's where we are, though, I think, just sort of to get back to what it is that we're going to do today. Are we going to clarify the motion, and are we going to deal with the interim director's positions? Because those were the two items I brought back to you all. And then any other questions for HR, who's here today, to sort of move us through the process.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. I would say I would love for us to clarify the motion. And then clarify the motion that we made on April the 18th about admin leave. We do need to clarify that. We also need to discuss what we're going to do about an interim and who that person may be. And so we need to discuss that today as well. And I do not want to cut off discussion about this issue at all, but we have some real serious things to discuss and make decisions on that could take a long time. And I do want to respect everyone's time. So but I want everyone to have a chance to say what they need to say. And so I'm going to go to Commissioner West and then to Commissioner Jester.
I have a question for HR, I believe. So in the event that an interim director is selected, it still sounds to me that Director Singh would be hanging out here while the interim director is doing the work here if Director Singh has not been released from his employment. That the interim director would be doing this work. Just clear me up so I understand. Let's say the interim director is doing the work and Director Singh is still on FMLA. He's not been cleared to come back. For me, the Wright report and other things, core competencies that were discussed last year with the commission of Director Singh all play into this. But how does that work if you get an interim director starting? And I need clarity on that. Because in the past, we've had an interim director as a search for a full-time, a national search for a full-time director was going forward. I'm not hearing that language right now, so I want to know what that looks like.
So let me say, this circumstance is very unique, so let's just acknowledge that. Usually the process would be a leader is leaving, an interim is selected. That interim stays in place for a requisite amount of time based on the need of the departmental organization. And then there is a full-blown executive search to look for a permanent leader. And that's, I think, a normal process, right? We have, just this week, we have another department head who is taking on another opportunity outside of Metro. The appointing authority selected an interim director. The interim director is going into place. He will serve in that role while we support an executive search, which will take several months based on that organizational need, and then we will go after that permanent executive search. So I do imagine no matter what, at some point in the future, when you need a full-blown permanent executive search, that Metro HR is going to be here to help support the commission the same way they have done so in the past, right? And that's a pretty heavy lift, but we really try to work and collaborate with the commission, really make sure we have great outreach, and then move you through a really streamlined but robust process that allows different stakeholders to be part of that process, and then bring you some narrow finalists that you would interview publicly and make a selection. Okay.
Thank
So-
you, that helps.
Yes,
Because
so that's the usual process.
Yeah. So,
So in your circumstance right now, I do not disagree that it is, it would be very challenging for an interim director to come in and start making interim decisions with a executive director still employed and still existing. And that is a pretty unusual circumstance. But I do realize that's the reality of where you are right now as you are contemplating this decision. The commission last week seemed interested in talking about having an interim leader sooner versus later. I do believe that the reports and information we've received from others in the staff indicate that there is a real need. I have said to the commission, I believe that there is a real need for effective leadership, pretty desperately for not only staff support, but also departmental functions. I think the primary goal is to make sure that the Arts Commission and its staff and functions are stabilized, preserved, and start to function healthily and appropriately. I think that's the overall goal for all of us, right? So I think the commission is going to be faced with whether or not they want to remain in that very unusual situation. I think it could likely inhibit some of the actions or empowerment the commission may want that interim person to have in an interim basis where there may be a permanent director on leave that may or may not return at the conclusion of his FMLA.
thank you so much. That's what was percolating in my mind, and I was thinking with our past director, FMLA was taken, interim was put into place internally while the national search was going on. I remember us working on that. And what you just explained is exactly what I was thinking. And I'd encourage the commission to, when looking at an interim, to keep these things in mind, that if we need to get a really, when we first hired Director Singh, it was, of course, for equity, but it was also for trust, building trust with the staff, with the community, cleaning up a house, several things, like the 5 core competencies that we continue to talk about. And I hope that we can give autonomy to an interim to do exactly what Shannon just said as we look forward. But I was just confused on how that interim would be able to do an effective job if we're still sort of hanging out here. So thank you. You cleared it right up.
Commissioner Jester.
So I feel like I made it pretty clear last week that I also wanted, to a certain degree, to hear from Director Singh on the Luther Wright report, but that I had come to the conclusion that there was nothing he could respond to that would change my mind, which is one of the reasons I made the motion I made last week, excuse me. But to that point about the response to the Luther Wright report, it sounds to me, from what Councilor Dietz has said, is that Daniel could have responded to us if he wanted to. Now, I don't know if he's heard us ask or talk about wanting a response the many times that we have, but if he has, he could have responded. And also, I wanted to point out that in Jamie Holland's letter last week, he said, "My next communication to you will be a summary response to the Wright report that the commission seeks while simultaneously acknowledging ... So I think we could ask Jamie to go ahead and provide that to us. And that could be maybe some of the resolution that we're looking for. If we're allowed to ask Jamie. I know we can't ask Director Singh, but I don't know why we couldn't ask Jamie when he's already said he'd provide it.
Okay.
I would think going through his counsel is the same thing as asking him, so I would just say if he wants to provide it, provide it. But we probably shouldn't ask him or his counsel.
And I will also say that, while I will entertain a revised version of my motion, I still believe that we're just kicking the can down the road. I feel like we're prolonging the inevitable and not doing ourselves or Director Singh or the arts community or our staff any favors.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
I am so glad we had this conversation. We needed to have this conversation. But it just dawned on me as I'm looking at the agenda that Director Singh's termination is not on the agenda. So that unless it's part of new business, it may be subject to challenge if someone could make the argument that it's not on the agenda. So my suggestion is, do what? Can we move to amend the agenda? Do we have counsel here? Tess, can we move to amend the agenda now to have a motion to terminate Director Singh?
No, you cannot, because there's a notice issue.
Okay.
The agenda has to be posted due to public notice and Open Meetings Act, so you can't amend the agenda and add a new item.
Is my concern about his termination not being on the
Correct.
agenda?
That would be legal's opinion if you were to want to make a motion for Director Singh's termination, that it's not properly noticed, and legal would recommend you not take up that issue today.
Then I'd recommend we put that on the agenda for next time. But I'm glad we had this discussion.
Thank you. So I'll go back. I welcome and I would entertain a motion to clarify his administrative leave to say that it runs concurrently with his FMLA, as well as specifying a time limit of when he can come off of admin leave. So I will entertain any of those motions if anyone on the commission would like to do that. Because it has to be done.
All right. I would like to revise my motion from last week to state that we put Director Singh on paid administrative leave concurrent with FMLA until 2 weeks after his FMLA runs out.
Thank you. So you're not revising a motion because we've already disposed of that?
Yeah, so a new motion.
Okay. Just restate that again.
Red light's blinking. Hold on. It's working. God. It's a comedy of errors here. I would like to move that we place Director Singh on paid administrative leave concurrent with FMLA until 2 business weeks after his FMLA has finished.
Is there a second?
Remind me when we can discuss that. Do you have to have a second to discuss? A second.
Okay, it has been moved and properly seconded. Is there any discussion?
Can we time that in relation to the next commission meeting? So he doesn't come off admin leave and we're not in meeting or anything?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, actually.
State that one more time.
Yeah, can we time Director Singh coming off of admin leave to coincide with one of our next meetings? So we can discuss at that point what to do. Otherwise, we may run into a scenario where he comes off of admin leave, but there's not a decision about what to do next.
His FMLA ends before our next meeting, correct? It's a month out?
At last count, I believe it exhausts on May 16th.
And that's our next meeting date.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
I have a couple of questions as well.
Yes, before we get there. So, okay, so FMLA ends May 16th. Our next meeting is May 16th. And when's our next meeting after that?
The next meeting is not until July. It would have to be a special called meeting for June.
July 18th. What if we had a special called meeting in June and then time the admin leave to coincide with that time so we can make a decision in June?
That is something that you're well within your right to make that suggestion. I would just say we have a meeting set up for May the 16th, and we can discuss that at that meeting. I guess I'm trying to understand, like, what are you trying to get to, if that makes sense?
Where I'm trying to get to is I'm in Italy on May 16th. And
Gotcha, okay.
I want to be here for that meeting.
Okay, Commissioner, I'm going to go to, on this end right now.
Go on.
Okay.
Two
Commissioner
questions.
Wade.
What is the purpose of us having admin leave concurrent with FMLA? If it is seemingly only to allow the accrual of sick leave and holiday pay, whatever it is called in Metro. So why would we need him to be on administrative leave concurrently rather than not concurrent with FMLA? And then what is our purpose for administrative leave beyond his FMLA? If we believe that we're going to make a terminal decision, why would we then have him on administrative leave for a week or two after FMLA is over? Help me. I'm assuming there's a reason. I just can't find it at this point.
So I'll speak for myself. I always say procedurally, we may end up at the same decision, but for me, I like procedurally to do things the right way. If we do need to hear from him, I can't imagine any other scenario where someone is going to be terminated and they don't say anything. And I understand that he has had opportunities to say things, but it is muddy, as Commissioner Watts said. Who can say, when they can say, should I say, when have we talked about the response that he may or may not have given to us? For Leah, and that's the only person I'm speaking for, I am uncomfortable making a decision about someone's livelihood without hearing from them. That's just Leah. And I still may come down to the same decision, but procedurally, I would just like to give someone that opportunity to do that. And so for me, that's why I appreciate the motion that Commissioner Jester said. But I'm just one person. It is the will of this commission of how they want to handle that. But for me, that's where I am. Commissioner Harden, did you have something else?
Yeah, I've been kind of trying to figure out the right time to bring this up. I've heard from a lot of community members, past staff, current staff, friends, family that I've, talked about, just this idea. And I'm not an expert in restorative practices, but I've been around them, for a while, specifically in the Arts Commission and with Metro Arts. And that's something we've really tried to make our identity, right? At one point, we probably were seen as a leader in equity and restorative practices here in the arts community. And we talk about the cycle, right? And the cycle of harm specifically. And I think like many of my fellow commissioners are saying, there's not necessarily an argument that we feel can be made to kind of change our minds on the future direction of Metro Arts. But I think we need to consider, how do we end this cycle of harm? And I don't think just closing a door and walking into the next is a simple way to do that. So I think as we do consider this, we need to consider, what does repairing harm between Daniel and our city and his staff and our staff and the commission and the community, what does that look like? And I do think in order for us to, whether it be a facilitated conversation with Daniel and staff or community, I do think in the process we need to consider that, not necessarily to say, hey, we want Daniel to come back and repair relationships and then keep moving, but for staff, for Daniel as well, we want to ensure that we all learn from this, and that we do kind of find a way that wherever he goes next, he's learned from this. He doesn't have to carry that trauma, because there are a lot of people in our community that have been through Metro Arts that still walk around and carry that are still triggered when any of this comes up for them. And so I think we're definitely in this position where it seems like we're all headed in a certain direction. But yeah, I think, and I don't know what that looks like legally about, if he's terminated, is there a way to kind of bring him back for some type of and it could be information exchange as well in terms of, some of the things he put in place. Because also talking with staff, it is not all bad. There have been some things that have pushed back on what we call, systemic racism. And so, yeah, I think we need to gather what that looks like, not just for us, but for Daniel as well, because, you know, we want him to move forward wherever he goes next and do well, because he's going to serve another community, if not ours. So I just want to say that. And I don't know exactly what that looks like in terms of practice and legality of having, you know, some type of communication. But yeah, I did want to put that out there. So thank you.
Commissioner Lepowitz, thank you.
It's so funny you say that because my very first meeting here, which was the January meeting that you chaired, after that meeting, my first thought was, because I too come from like a setting where we use restorative practices and circling, was that I wanted a restorative circle, like after that meeting, right? Because it felt so painful. And it has been, to your point, like so painful. So I don't know what that looks like either, but I don't know how such a conversation too, I think I'm talking about something different from what you're talking about a little bit, but if we were to be able to hear from Director Singh, whatever that looks like, in a public meeting, right? Could that ever be compatible with a conversation that felt restorative, right, in some way, or moved us towards that? That may not be at all what this body is about, but I do think these are the stated values of the commission. To your point about closing a door and just hoping that it's going to be different next time, it won't, right, unless we, and this is not really about the decision we make, right, but it's about how we do it and acknowledging the harm and the cost that this has. There's a great toll. So I don't know what that looks like either, but I'd like to imagine it.
Okay. Is there any more discussion on the motion that's on the floor?
I just have one comment, and that is something that you said, and you said, Commissioner Lefkowitz and Commissioner Hart, and that is that the process is ours, and we can move it forward with facilitated dialogue or without. And that if we're going to be a board and meet our mandates, that we can do those kind of things. How we do it might need to be discussed, but I think it can be done. If we said it can't be done, then, you know, I see a door, I'm ready to go. And I'm gonna be real honest, because we do have the power to discuss. We've had great discussion today. I think we're moving in the right directions. I think we should never, ever lock ourselves into one person, one thing, but look at the organization. The value it adds and will add if we take action. If we get too myopic, we're gonna lose focus. And we said we're an organization bound by equity. Equity says we have to then do some things that might be difficult for all of us to do, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. So I think we just need to think about that as we move forward. That's just a comment, so.
Commissioner Wade, to answer your question about concurrent versus non-concurrent, it was my understanding, and I feel like it seems pretty logical, and the reason I said concurrent is because Director Singh's not going to come off FMLA unless the paperwork situation changes or FMLA time ends. And so it seems naturally concurrent without even the clarity that FMLA is going to continue. And I don't know whether or not he was taking paid sick leave or not. If he was, then it would just turn off his paid sick leave and turn on income again. And if he wasn't taking paid sick leave, then it would just turn his income on again. So that was my reason for concurrent instead of non-concurrent.
Thank you. I'm still, I guess, at a concern of, in this motion, how that then affects the appointment of an interim director. It feels like that interim director, by the time we search for the interim director, if we're talking about a date of May 16th for the FMLA to have run out, if he's medically approved to then go on leave, to then have the conversation, we're still in a leadership vacuum. Still in a leadership vacuum. And I feel like we're not, I'm at a loss of how this motion really does move the organization forward. If indeed, not that I disagree with you, Commissioner Jester, not at all. I'm just trying to figure out how this moves us past where we are to a place that we were out of leadership vacuum. And are we just going into an interim for a few weeks here, come do this, and then in comes another? It just doesn't sit well with me, I'm gonna be honest.
To your point, I have the same concerns. I'm offering the motion for the clarity around FMLA. I think 2 additional weeks puts us past our next commission meeting, so we could talk about our next commission meeting. But I was last week, and I'm still of the opinion that this is a half measure. So I'm making the motion because it was originally my motion, but I agree. I don't know who would want to come on board as an interim with all of this hanging over their head.
Thank you. And about your motion, and this ties into this as well, when I had seconded last week, I didn't have the full information, so I felt like that would not be responsible of me. I didn't have the email that was from Director Singh's attorney, and so I felt like making a motion to support that without the full information would not have been prudent. So that's why I had to pull my second last week. But regarding this, it feels like we're walking into another fire.
Commissioner Leibowitz, yes, go ahead. And then
What if, I just want to go back. What if we did nothing? What if we did not? What if Commissioner Singh was not on administrative leave, but rather is on FMLA? It expires the day of our next meeting. I don't know what time. Is it like midnight, the night before? Whatever. We put something in our agenda and we think about it. That may not be, I'm sure there's a gazillion problems with that idea, but, and that in that sense, he could speak, and it would be in our agenda. That probably is a bad idea, but.
No, all of our ideas are good. And I will say this, because when Commissioner West mentioned the email that was received last time that she didn't have before her, I went to pull it up. And at 11:04 today, and I didn't see this because I was on my way here for our executive session, Jamie Holland sent an email. I don't know if I'm the only person on it or not, because I don't see any BCCs, and if not, I can forward that to everybody. So we received something at 11:04 today, and so I did not see that, so please forgive me, because I was on my way here, and I was not looking at emails. And so we did receive something from his attorney today at 11:04, and I will forward that out if I can get service. I will forward that out to everyone so they can see that. Back to what Commissioner West said, if we do nothing, that's still 3 weeks that the staff have no one as a leader. If we do it for 2 weeks, that still doesn't give an interim time to come in and do something. I don't know. Something has to be done today. We are all capable and bright people. We can figure it out. We can do that without being here all day. But we have to do something. I'm almost at a loss of words because we have to do something. I saw all the things go up at once. I'm going to go to Watts, Nephlin, and then McCoy.
A couple of things. One is that an interim director could do something that none of us have the time to do, and that is to assess and talk with staff in a different kind of environment. Not us, but someone to talk to that. So to look for someone who can facilitate the dialogue and discussion about what are the issues, what is available, what kind of things that we might be able to do based on conversations with staff. They also might help us expand our conversations to other stakeholders and everything else. Whoever comes in as interim is not the same animal that will be running the agency, but it could give us some insight into who that person needs to be to get us where we need to be within a specified period of time. Interim directors are always those people who come in and move around to organizations, find the gaps, and while we have this oversight committee, none of us have the time to be in there doing just that. Where are the gaps? How do we work with that? How do we meet our goals and objectives as an organization? How can we get the dialogue facilitated in a manner that gives us real information moving forward? We're doing some things. I taught third grade one time. Just bear with me for a minute. I am a storyteller. I taught third grade. I never taught third grade before, and I hated the idea of teaching third grade. It was one of my best experiences and one of my best life leadership experiences, learning how to teach third graders. Because I had to listen to those little 9-year-olds wander around and create havoc with my brain and my emotions and other things. But what I found out was I had some of the brightest students, and they were clear, they were articulate, but I had to give them the opportunity to be that. But I was in that room full time. That's the other part of this. We're not in the room full time. And we really do need someone to do that. I don't see the interim as being the person who will be there forever. I've seen interims operate for 90 days, for 6 months, for a year. It depends on what we need and what we want to get this done. And that's the can that we can't afford to kick down the road again. That really is the can we need to be worried about, not who the leader is, because we can choose other leaders, we can move people around, and we can listen to people. But if we're not listening, digesting, and then coming up with a better process, then I think that really is the issue. So I think we just need to sort of look at that and think about what is it that we want to have happen over a time period. But none of us have the time to go into the organization, which is what I think that I saw as the beauty of having an interim. That's just my perspective. I used to be a consultant doing this stuff, so I know that. So I think that that's something to think about today as we do this and move forward, whether we leave things as it is or whatever, but we do try to get someone that can assist us with getting the information. And I think that is probably an external person, that's my opinion, not an internal person. Only because we want the best possible knowledge to get an interim that can move through the things that are going on or the emotions that people have without being invested in those emotions and things. And that's generally what happens. So that's just a concept and an idea to present to you all.
Okay.
Then perhaps a solution is to go ahead and clarify through this motion that the admin leave is concurrent with FMLA, but leave the date open until we can reconvene, which is only however long it is from now, through 3 weeks, and revisit it at the next commission meeting, which I won't be at, unfortunately. But in the interim, if we make that move, we can go ahead and start the process of getting an interim director in place.
Thank you.
Is it appropriate to ask Director Singh to be?
Commissioner McCoy was next on the line. Yeah, you're fine. Yeah.
I wanted to echo a little bit of Commissioner Wade's concerns about the motion, and that is, I don't know that it really serves the purpose. He is on FMLA. That's the first concern. The second concern has to do with Commissioner Hardin's comments about conciliation. And my concern is the staff. I don't think we will have a staff if we continue the dialogue, which is what we're doing. I believe that Director Singh should be terminated for cause because of staff complaints, 2 of which have been upheld, for financial deficits that he has run during the year and 4 months or 6 months that he's been here, for the number of financial irregularities that he has engaged in, for his failure to respond to requests by staff and by requests by commissioners for basic information. When you have an employee who is not doing their job and it is harming other people, reconciliation is not the answer. We are not trying to reconcile and make this man's portfolio look good for the next susceptible employer. We did not know about his employment in Baltimore. If there had been due diligence in the search for an executive director, we would have known what had transpired in the city of Baltimore under his leadership. I believe we should have an interim director immediately if we want to keep our employees. They are desperate for leadership. We have received a few suggestions. This past week, I have reached out to a number of my friends in the community for potential individuals who might be willing to serve as an interim director, and I would suggest that the individual be hired for no less than 4 months with no expectation that they would be the ultimate choice. It would be agreed on the front end that they will not be the permanent director, somebody on a interim basis. That's the wisest thing that we can do. We have some suggestions. I got one yesterday who I happen to know and think very highly of. I think we should move forward on this agenda to the appointment of an interim director right now and give the staff the relief that they need. Thank you.
We do have a motion on the floor that needs to be disposed of, up or down. Commissioner Jester, do you have something else you wanted to say? Commissioner Wade? I read faces sometimes. No, you're fine. So do you want to go, before, make your statement, then just restate what your motion was, because we do need to dispose of that so we can move on to the next agenda item.
Okay. I would like to make a quick statement after we've disposed of this item. And so you want me to restate the motion?
Yeah, just to make sure that we're all clear of what that was.
And the commission is on board with 2 weeks. I picked that time frame because nobody answered the question about an actual time frame that we would use. So if we're good with 2 weeks, I'll restate the motion with 2 weeks. I move that we put Director Singh on paid administrative leave concurrent with FMLA until 2 weeks after his FMLA period has ended.
Okay.
And I renew my second.
Okay. Thank you so much. Are we ready for the vote? Yes,
Ready. McCoy? Nefflin?
Yes.
West?
Abstain.
Watts? Love?
Yes.
Lefkowitz?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Harden?
Yes.
Jester?
Yes.
The vote is carried.
So we had 6 yes, 1 no, and 2 abstentions. The motion carried. Okay. All right, so the next item on the agenda
Madam
is.
Chair,
Pardon?
I apologize. May I interrupt to clarify something that is in response to some questions y'all have raised?
Yes, you may interrupt. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, but there is a concept, and I was just talking to Ms. Hall, and I'm sorry, there is a concept under the FMLA if the commission were to choose, and it doesn't impact the motion that was just carried. But just so you know, there's a concept under the FMLA of honoring the FMLA until its end, but based upon information that is learned by the employer during the leave or prior to the leave, informing the employee that they are not going to be entitled to reinstatement at the conclusion of the leave, which goes to the interim director concerned. So you could, under the FMLA, consistent with its regulations, determine that you're going to continue to honor the remainder of the leave. But if this commission decides, based upon information before the leave began or learned during the leave, including the investigation, that the employee is not going to be entitled to reinstatement at the conclusion of the leave. So that is within your authority, and I wanted to clarify. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Okay. All right, so Commissioner Watts, if one more time you can just go over your notes that you had about the interim executive director when you gave the two options that we had of what we can do.
Sorry about that, my, keeps telling me the time. The interim director process is pretty simple as I've been told. They can usually be selected or appointed by the appointing authority if they can perform the functions of the job and are willing to be in the interim position. As the appointing authority, the commission may simply vote to select an interim director at any meeting, or identify individuals who may have interest and put it into a different kind of a process of contacting them and making it a short-term process. This, however, could take this could take several weeks to do. The other things to consider is how long we want the interim to serve and any other actions we may need them to take during their tenure as interim director. Those can be decided and put into motions or be worked on as we move forward, but that should be done. And you have HR to really ask the more detailed questions. Sorry, Director Hall.
Thank you, Commissioner Watts. And so I will say that I do want to vote on an interim director today. That is my hope. That may not be the will of the commission, but that is my hope. So Commissioner McCoy, I do agree with you that we need to do something today. I don't know if I'm 100% on board with whoever the interim is could not apply later on. I don't know that, because whoever the interim could be amazing and could be, I don't know if I'm there, but I do think that we need to decide on someone today. And so I'm trying to see if it's better to discuss what that person will do first, or just bring up the people who we have received, just to talk that through to see what that looks like. I don't know what the will of the commission, Commissioner West. Mm-hmm. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse just a little bit. Things that have come to my attention is the staff has not been communicated to directly to say, hey, is anyone interested in this? I know that they can come to us with that, but that was one thing. Secondly, just to call it what it is, do we have the information on compensation? Do we have the information on, do we have the budget to do this? Do we have the and again, it goes back to how long is this person? How have they been vetted for this position? I mean, I know that it's simple in the terms that you gave it to us, but art and the many facets of that within this agency are not simple. And so to understand a little bit of that background, I would be hesitant just to vote for anyone today to be interim, just to be a placeholder to move forward with, and especially knowing that the FMLA is going to run out on the 16th, and what is this person going to effectively be doing? I have great confidence in the staff doing their jobs, but I know that they are in a massive leadership vacuum. Their mental health is suffering, everything is suffering. And just to arbitrarily choose someone without, I've seen 2 resumes that were sent over to us. I don't feel like that's a very informed way to choose an interim director. Is that just my 2 cents?
Commissioner Lefowitz.
I guess I was wondering if, in terms of the compensation or things like that, would we have to handle that, or could that be a negotiated package or something that we ask HR to negotiate, because I don't want to do that, or I don't know anything about that. That's number one. And then to your point, I mean, we have received some things. I would be interested if there's any other kind of suggestions that HR might have, or like people who, I don't know what the history is of people been vetted. Are there people on deck? I have no clue, what this looks like. So I would just be curious about those 2 things in terms of thinking about HR, because you're right, I don't feel like I know.
So we have 3 people. One is from HR. They had a recommendation. One is from someone in the community, and there was one that was sent, I think is doing yours, that was sent directly to me. And so, so we have 3 people that we can look to. And so I will turn this back over to Ms. Hall just to say how are interims vetted? What is your suggestion of how we do this? Is it appropriate to pick from the people that we have here today to serve as interim, knowing that this person is not the permanent person, but someone who can come in and do all the things that Commissioner Watts stated that we needed to do? So.
As I kind of mentioned before, there's something going on with everyone's microphones. I think this process is usually very different than when you would do a full vetting process of an executive director, right? You want to make sure, if these people, if you can substantiate either through work experience or experience you've had directly with them, are they able to do the essential functions of the job, right? And that they are willing to take the position. So usually there is not some big collection or big review process. I mean, like I just mentioned, we do this on a fairly regular basis as leaders leave. We had one with another department, and an interim was selected, and that person is going to serve for the interim. I don't know if I don't necessarily suggest that you do a minimum amount. I think your unique circumstance will drive that. But I think at this point, just given the state and the challenge that the department's in, really what I would personally see out of this person is someone who could come in, really stabilize the department, support and start healing the staff, support them as they are putting together really strong, solid operating procedures that are commensurate with the vision of the Arts Commission and its functions and duties. So having somebody that would come and do that and really start to stabilize that process, which based on what I have seen and experienced as we've worked and supported staff through different staff members, I think that's a months-long process. And then once that process starts to stabilize, I don't think it would necessarily preclude an interim should at that time they want to proceed. I would then be probably quite careful with how we interact with them, because I wouldn't want to give them an unfair advantage over any other candidates you may consider. So if that person said, I'm not really interested in doing this, likely HR would collaborate a little bit more with them and with you, really. The collaboration would be happening with both as we then start to stand up an executive search function. And that would be over like a 3 or 4 month period. We would come back to you well in advance. We would talk with you guys about, and I do think part of what the commission's, a real big ask of the commission that I think would be really helpful during this time that an interim is stabilizing the department is really you all as a commission coming to consensus about the vision and direction and the functions of the department, reestablishing and getting very consensus about that and giving that to the interim director and staff. Really then starting to come to consensus through this public process, right? Discuss what kind of hard and soft skill sets you really want to see out of your next executive leader. I would suggest working with our DEI leaders, both in Rochelle Jones and Andrea Blackman, helping to recommit, refine, and repractice how you want to do your equity work, both internally as a staff and externally with the partners that you are serving. Those would be like my Shannon Hall's personal recommendations, having been kind of a witness and walking and kind of seeing some of the struggles that I feel like I've been having internally, trying to listen to the external partners, listening to the concerns you guys are sharing as parts of your process. So I think to answer also Commissioner Lefkowitz's question, if you guys make a selection for an interim director or executive director, I absolutely recommend that you delegate the authority to negotiate appropriate employment terms directly to HR and finance. We would do that within the appropriate budget constraints, appropriate pay ranges. You all don't work for Metro, although Trey's been an employee before, I think, Commissioner Harden. But I can help to explain, like, these are how the benefit packages work. It was the same role that I played through the executive search process prior that selected Director Singh. So yes, we are happy to carry that and do so authentically as delegated by the commission and with the confines, constraints, and the wishes of the commission. So.
Thank you, Director Hall, and you did guide us through this lesson. Thank you so much. That helps a lot.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess, are we ready to? Everybody's going. Okay, are we ready to hear the names of the people? Oh, yeah.
Just a moment. I'm in this room a lot. If we have a Metro ITS partner, maybe sometimes when if one person hits the button too many times, it'll shut down all of the microphones. So I'm in this room a lot. I'm going to say just a moment because it's probably problematic for them.
You may not. I am breaking up, so never mind.
Yeah, and everybody's thinking, usually they'll shut down all of them. Okay. They'll have to do probably a hard reset.
Okay. If you could just bear with us, maybe 1 minute, I'm so sorry.
It takes 5 minutes to read.
What? Okay, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
They can't hear us, and so we can just pause for maybe 5 minutes. Is that all right?
Don't deliberate.
Yeah.
Commissioner, I think new business would be appropriate, but I read Jamie's email.
Okay, I can't pull it up for some reason.
First paragraph has everything to do with me, and I'll address it.
Why do we have to, do we have to?
Because we received it, and I just. Oh,
you said it.
Yeah, but I hadn't had it because we got it when we were here.
The first paragraph has entirely to do with me, though, and
Testing 1, 2.
All right, thank you. We're going to go ahead and go back into session. So we do have 3 names that did come to us various ways. And so the first name we got is someone who was the former executive director of the Nashville Community Education Commission, Miss Mary Beth Harding. If my understanding, the commission that she was the executive director of is no longer in existence, but she is the former executive director of the Nashville Community Education Commission. We also received a name, and so my understanding is that all 3 of these people who we have received are willing to serve. So we can already scratch that off, that they are willing to do this and they are okay for this. The next person is Mr. James Thrillkill, and he is a Middle Tennessee Emmy Award-winning visual artist, and he's also a DEI consultant. And he is interested in this role, and he is willing to forego any Metro Arts and related grant opportunities to serve in this position. Okay. The next one is Dr. Paulette Coleman. She is a former Arts Commission member and a former Arts Commission chair. And she was instrumental in developing what we now know as Thrive. And so those are the 3. You did receive emails on Mary Beth Harding and also Dr. Paulette Coleman. We do not have a resume for Mr. James Thrillkill, but again, so you haven't seen any of his information, but again, he is a Middle Tennessee-based Emmy Award-winning visual artist and a DEI consultant. He's also a former Arts Commission member. Okay. And so I'll just open it up to the floor. I did see Commissioner McCoy, and I thought I saw Commissioner Wade as well. And so I'll go to Commissioner McCoy and then to Commissioner, okay, he didn't, okay.
What I'd like to do is ask that we refer all 3 names to HR and have them do a preliminary interview. And we come back in about a week and make a decision based on whatever recommendations that they're able to do.
I don't know if I can commit to a week from now, but I'm just
A
one
short
person.
period of time.
Yeah. I am just one person. But I just don't know. But that could be the will of the commission. I don't know. Okay, Commissioner Tarden?
Yeah, just, was there a specific recommendation from HR? Or maybe I misheard that.
Yes, HR recommended Mr. James Thrillkill. Okay. Thrillkill, I think I'm pronouncing correctly.
Did they have the other 2 names?
Did they have them?
Yes.
No, they did not. Those came directly to me or us. Yes.
I have worked with one of these candidate individuals, and I think very highly of that person.
Okay.
And I just think all 3 should be given an opportunity to have their resume and credentials examined. I actually know 2 of these candidates, so.
Well, we would do that. And that's why I think you said come back in a week, just because we would need to do that. But it is the will of the commission of how they want to proceed with this. Yeah.
In particular, I think James Thrillkill has a significant amount of DEI experience. He spent 12 years with Wisconsin leading up their DEI program. He's born and raised in Nashville, went to Vanderbilt, and he's willing. He feels very much to me like when we're looking for an interim director, the vetting process, well, it needs to be there, it needs to be significantly less than the vetting process when we're moving toward potentially a new director. And so with HR's blessing and with his qualifications that seem pretty clear to the arts community, he seems like the best choice of the 3 to me.
Okay, thank you. And I'll say that when I saw all of the names, Mr. Thrillkill and Dr. Coleman were the best that I saw because they both were former Arts Commission members. And then what I particularly liked about Dr. Coleman was that she is very familiar with this commission because she was chair and because she was instrumental in getting us to where we are with Thrive now. And so, again, the lift will be very small for her as well. And so, for me, those two would be, wonderful. And so I just love to hear from, I've seen Mr. Nefflin, Commissioner Nefflin, then Commissioner Watts.
I think something to consider, based on these past 2 or 3 meetings, including budget and oversight, and the last commission meeting, is that we have to look again at Thrive and make sure we're doing it correctly. And does that put Dr. Coleman in a conflict position? And with respect to Mr. Threlka, I'm aware of him. I'm aware of his work with SCANSA. And I think he's a very good candidate from what I know of him.
I just want to clarify, when I said instrumental in that, she was on the commission when she was doing that. She was not an artist. She's not an artist. She was on the commission and chair of the commission. Okay. So there wouldn't be a conflict. Okay. Oh, yeah.
What I meant was about what I heard you say, she was instrumental in developing Thrive, and Thrive is being looked at again for its legality, and that's where I see the concern.
I know 2 of the individuals as well. They're highly qualified. I know that Dr. Coleman has spent probably the last 3 years convening individuals around housing issues, which gives us some additional kind of community issues at a higher level than anyone else. And I think that's one of the things that we really do have to have. And when I say she's convened, I mean she's convened hearings and other things to hear from a variety of stakeholders in the housing arena in the city, which gives her some credentials, I think, that take us to where we need to be. Because we're not just talking about staff. We're not just talking about everything. We're really talking about what we look like moving forward and how we get there and who we bring in to help us do that. So I think she comes with a set of credentials and years of history in civil and human rights that tops everybody, including me. And I've got a lot of years. So I'm just looking at that. So I think that that's one of the things we might need to look at as well. How do we get what we need moving forward? And it really isn't just about one thing. It really is about a variety of things. It's about understanding staff needs. It's about understanding artist community needs. Then there's the broader community and other things. And then there is the political issues that we all confront on an ongoing basis. And she has that as well. So I'm looking at a well-rounded person that can, you got to sway with the wind. And I think she can do that better than anybody I know. And I've known her a long time. So
I echo everything she just said.
Thank you. Commissioner Wade, and then did you have something? Oh, okay, Commissioner.
Ultimately, I concur with Commissioner Watts. Know both Dr. Coleman and James Threlkill, and honestly, either, I believe, could be a really good interim director, and one of them really could consider when and if there's an opportunity to apply for the actual position, could. I know that Dr. Coleman then is very much capable and has practiced a wide variety of engagement across community in a lot of different ways that make sure that community is engaged, but also imbues confidence, imbues equity, imbues good quality work and work ethic. And so I'm happy to vote for one of the 3 candidates here because I have no qualms about the 2 that I personally know stepping in and taking care of what we need taken care of once we define it very specifically.
Commissioner Harden, yes.
I also know Dr. Coleman. I've worked with her more recently and gotten to know her, so I don't know her as well as I know Mr. Threlkill. I interned at SCANSA in 2013, and actually my first exposure to what DEI work, especially in the construction industry, was through Dr. Threlkill, I've actually probably known him. I went to school with his kids and have known him since I was young. So his impact on me and where I find myself in this seat, I think is significant. So I think I do have that opinion. And while I know of Dr. Coleman's work, I absolutely, have a feeling that she's capable as well. Mary Beth Harding, I don't know personally, but, I have kind of heard of some of the work she's done. So I'm happy to read her recommendation as well. But for me personally, I think Mr. Thrillkill is kind of a godfather for a lot of artists in the city. And, not knowing that his name would be brought up, it was very exciting for me to hear that. So that's all I have to say.
I do have just one question, and maybe HR can answer this. Is he currently receiving grants, or what was that? Okay.
I did speak with him. Okay. Ironically, he's a finalist for one of your beautiful projects. He does understand that he would have to forego that opportunity and withdraw his name for consideration. And he is willing to do that in any other Metro Arts or grant-related opportunities while he's in this role. I think to the greater point, he is a successful artist, and so he does realize that may forego certain opportunities while he's in this role.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that was on the record. Okay, thank you. Is there any other discussion? Yes, Commissioner McCoy.
Just in an interest question, how did you get his name and nobody else's?
I would say, no, there's a lot of people that have really care about Metro Arts, really care about the artists in our community, really care about the staff. And I think over the past several months, it's trying to listen to all the different stakeholders and find someone. I think it's been a challenge to think of any candidate that would be uniquely qualified given the challenging and evolving sets of circumstances and various stakeholders. I think a lot of us have been trying to just brainstorm anybody who would be qualified. And I think, frankly, a lot of us have been doing a lot of listening, listening to artists, listening to commission, listening to staff. And so his name came up, and I haven't had a chance to work with him directly and personally, but I think this is just a bunch of us just trying to brainstorm any kind of possible, viable willingness, strong partners that could come in and support and heal staff,
So
help standardize processes.
So if there is another individual like Dr. Coleman, you wouldn't have any problem meeting her and talking to her, because I actually do feel that she's a very strong candidate, and I have worked with her on a board before. I feel just like Commissioner Watts said, I do think that because the staff is primarily women, that having a very strong, effective individual in that spot who can relate to what they've been through would be very helpful. And I would like to think that we would consider her too.
And I should say, I think ultimately, this is the commission's job. And honestly, your selection. And it heartens me that I hear so many of you saying 2 of these candidates are excellent. That's music to my ears. You could certainly ask my opinion. But I feel like this is something, it feels like you guys are on a path towards 2 really highly qualified candidates. I don't know that you need my review voice as part of that necessarily. But I will tell you, my heart breaks for all involved. And I really want like a strong and healing, thriving Metro Arts and staff and function. So we're trying to do everything in our power just to bring a candidate in case there weren't others that were supplied to you, or you looked to us and you said, is there anybody you got? And we thought, you know what, this is someone who's uniquely qualified. I wonder if he will be willing to do it. We had some really lovely interactions and conversations to really discuss that. And I thought we'll bring a name to the table that hopefully could help to meet that need. And when I look at the DEI background, I look at the long-term art influence and community relations that he has. I was like, and a former Arts Commission member. We just wanted to bring someone for your consideration, but I think you guys are well on a path towards either one of these being really highly qualified candidates. So understand, we're bringing a recommended name, but not necessarily to strong arm or suggest that he is more or less qualified than the other strong candidate that it feels like you all are leaning towards. Just in the spirit of, we want to help you find a strong partner that can help lead us into a happier, healthier, thriving Metro Arts is really the goal.
Thank you. I did have a request to hear from one of the staffers. If you want to come and we can go out of session and hear from him.
Jesse Ross, Public Art Coordinator. I just wanted to clarify, there's been a lot of comments, one of them being that the relationship with Director Singh and staff is irreparable, and I just want to state that that's irresponsible to say that. That does not represent my view and maybe many others. It's been very unclear who has had an HR problem, and it's very vague. Is it one person? Is it two? But we blanket statement it like we're painting out Director Singh to be a monster, and it's a bad mischaracterization. We've also been characterizing him as a bad leader, and I just want you to know that his leadership was clear, and we were focused, and the priority was sitting on the top of your agenda, equity. And we operationalized it, we met about that, and we took everything we did and put it through that lens. And the chaos that ensued happened after July. And this body, I know some of you weren't sitting in these chairs, but before July, there was no complaints. There was no chaos. And from anything, like within staff or anybody. After July, and after a huge conflict of interest and calls to the top through speed dial, chaos ensued. And the harm started happening, the threats, the this and that, and all these things. And a lot of the new staff that has come on, I feel for them. They did not get to experience Director Singh before that. And if they had, I personally believe that they would have a different view. But all the rugs were pulling out from under him, left and right after July. He was getting, the directors at the top of every major metro organization coming to him because of the calls that were going out and some of the conflicts of interest that are very clear. I mean, it's clear that he was doing a great job at prioritizing equity because that's what happened. And the can that keeps getting kicked down the road that I'm concerned about as a staff person, and some of you have said this without actually saying it, this is clear scapegoating. And the problem with scapegoating is that when you send that person out, you didn't get rid of the problems. The can that keeps getting kicked down the road is, I don't think personally this commission understands what equity is, what it looks like. It's on the top of our agenda, but we don't talk about it. And how is this next person gonna prioritize that? I know there's different opinions, but to me, congratulations to Dr. Singh for the first time in 30 years actually prioritizing a funding model that was not 100% to, legacy organizations. It was going to artists, it was going to people on the ground. So all the harm that's being compiled, and I will say, excuse me, that the whole time that he was doing that, we had a skeleton staff, a finance director that didn't even want the job, that lived in Oregon, that we had bad reception at every meeting. We finally have a full staff, but unfortunately July happened. And so I'll never know what we could have accomplished. And so I am very concerned that no matter what, scapegoat we send out, we're putting a Band-Aid in there, the problems are still there. What does this look like? So just for me personally, I just had to state that because it's been misrepresented and mischaracterized in my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Jesse. Do you have something? Okay. So, if you all are all right with this, if we are ready to, if I can get Vivian to just call our names and we say who we prefer, is that the best way to do this?
We need a motion.
Do we need to make a motion for a specific candidate, or how do we?
Well, that's what I'm saying, because how will we get to the motion for that, or not for that? I didn't know if we needed to just make a vote. What is the best way to handle this? And I can look at legal, y'all tell me, Macy, you tell me, Tessa, you tell me, what's the best way to do this? Do we need a motion, or do we just call the roll and we say one or two?
Is this thing on? Okay. I would prefer that someone makes a motion and it passes or fails, and then if it fails, someone makes another motion. That seems to be the cleanest.
Right. Commissioner Watts.
Let me make a motion. I make a motion that we contact and employ Dr. Coleman to be our interim director, and that we direct her to do certain things relative to staffing, to community outreach, and working with this body to assist in oversight moving forward long-term.
I second.
Okay, that has been moved and seconded. Do we have discussion on that? Commissioner West?
I just want to be sure that I'm, again, clear that we're all on the same page. Does everybody have the job description of what an interim director would do, or does everybody have Daniel's job description? You got it? I've got it. Mm-hmm. Anybody else? Okay, I guess going piece by piece, going through Dr. Coleman and going through each candidate, it just doesn't feel, I don't know, doesn't feel fair to all three candidates if we are not all on this commission informed on what they actually are going to be doing.
This feels very rushed to me.
I want to see someone in this role like immediately, and I can say I know all three. I don't know Mary Beth as well, but I definitely know the other two, and both are very well qualified. I just want to make sure that we are all on the same page as what they are walking into, and that they're on the same page as well as the how long they'll be on staff.
I also have a question. Have any of the three seen an interim job description or the job description of the role they're about to take? Because if not, it would seem that they would need to before we determine which one would take that role. And I have worked personally with James and less so with Dr. Coleman. I don't know Ms. Harding, and have confidence in what I've read about them. And part of the processes I was talking about last week that we need to make sure are in place, this happens to be one of them, so that they know what they're going to be doing.
And so, again, it's my understanding that all three of these people understand what the role is and are willing to serve in that role. Whatever that means to you, I don't know if they have it printed out in front of them, but that is my understanding, that each of these names or individuals are aware of this position and are willing to serve in that position. And we can, again, it is the will of the entire commission. We can vote this up or down. And so that is your business, if that's what you would like to do. But we do have the motion on the floor that we do need to dispose of up or down. Commissioner McCoy, and then I'll go to Commissioner West.
I think there's a lot of concern about following procedure and doing this in an informed way. And I think we have been working, as has been evident from the comments that I've heard. People have been looking for somebody for an interim director for weeks and weeks. I've been doing it. It's a hard sell to have somebody agree to take this position. And I am thankful that we have three names. I think it's incumbent upon us to step up and pick somebody so we can go forward. We don't have any more time to delay. There are people out in the community who are looking for what are we going to do with regards to grants. You have an individual here who has experience with the whole process, and that's who's been nominated. I grant you, Mr. Thrillkill has great experience, but it is equal to or not as great as that of Dr. Coleman. And I think she's an excellent candidate, and we need to go forward. If this motion fails, we've at least taken a step. We can go on to the next person. But I really would advocate that a person of color is essential, and I would say a woman is essential at this point. I had not heard from the staffer before. I appreciate his comments. But right now, we need to go forward because there is work to be done. So I do move that we go forward with the motion.
Oh, absolutely, because I have something to.
It's my understanding, I saw it somewhere, Dr. Coleman is on Metro Board. Is there a conflict with that?
You're reading my mind.
Well, I was going to say the same thing, and I was going to let you go. So you cannot. So if she is to serve as our interim, then she would have to resign from that board.
You cannot be on unless your position dictates otherwise. You cannot be a Metro employee and serve on a Metro Board or Commission, right? As the HR director, I serve on the Employee Benefit Board, but MDHA. Right, understood.
Oh, but she would be
So
an
she's on the
employee if she was
MDHA
interim.
board is my understanding, and she cannot be an employee and continue to serve on that board. So she would need to resign from the MDHA board if she were going to serve in this role.
Has she agreed to do that?
She's aware of that, so that she cannot serve on both.
And Madam Chair, just if I could ask the maker of the motion and the seconder, I think just I would recommend a cleaner motion, with a recommended candidate be employed as an interim director and then delegate the employment terms to Metro HR and Finance commensurate with, Metro provisions, something like that. I don't know that we need to further specify that interim role. I think part of that work and specification can come later, but I don't want to give the impression that they're only going to be doing some of those things. I think I want to make sure that it's a slightly cleaner motion so there's not a misunderstanding that that's really the role you're having them step into, commensurate with the functions and duties of the executive director.
Who made that motion?
Then let me amend my motion to hire Dr. Paulette Coleman as the interim executive director and have HR and finance work out the specific details on that.
I second.
All right. We have a clean motion before us. Commissioner West, do you have something or just, okay?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I just want to say again, institutional memory. I feel like this is fast, that there hasn't been quite enough. I'm thinking about budget season. I'm thinking about there's not quite enough vetting and frankly, no job description with most of the commission and the people that are actually looking at the position. That makes me really uncomfortable. I don't know what else to say. And putting one name in front of another, like for one vote and then a second vote and then a third also feels it doesn't feel equitable at all. It's like we're putting one, and again, I think that there's a little bit more due diligence that could be done. I know the candidates for James Thrillkill, love Dr. Coleman, I don't know Mary Beth as well, but I do think looking at the needs right now, and it just feels a little short-sighted to say, let's just hand this over without a job description, without clarity on what the expectations are going to be. I just want to say that again. I'm sorry to tie us up.
And so, just so I am clear, if and when we make a recommendation to have this interim, then we would turn that over to HR to handle all of those things. And they can decline if they'd like. If something happens and they see something that they were not aware of, they can decline. That is their right. Once we say yes, we're not tying their hands to stay with us. They still have autonomy to say yes or no. And so, yes. So I wanted to just make that clear as well. What we say here is not law, if you will, so they can decline that if that's something that they would love to do. Ms. Hall?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Maybe I can at least speak to, for Mr. Thrillkill, I did supply him a copy of the job description because I had that conversation and that was a nice, responsible thing to do, and he's a thoughtful person. So I did supply that component to him, and then also tried to, I assume that a lot of the arts community is aware of some of the current challenges that are facing Metro Arts, but I tried to briefly highlight that, what I hear the staff continuing to ask for, what I feel like the commissions continue to ask for, and that I really very consistent with the comments I've made today. I think the healing of the staff, the outlining and supporting of stronger operating procedures that can be documented, support for the work, helping to center equity around the grants process really seem to be the high priorities by the commission, by the staff members. So I've highlighted those as the immediate need that I saw in conjunction with the job functions I supplied. But with the offer, I can also extend that same job description to the preferred candidate of the commission as part of that process as well, so that they are all walking in eyes wide open.
Madam Chair, I call the question.
All right, the question's been called. All right, are we ready to vote? All right. Forgive me, Vivian, if you can, forgive me, Commissioner.
Ready. How are we choosing the order in which we're going here? How do we start with Dr. Coleman and then go into Dr. Thrillkill and then go into Mary Beth? I mean, how are we doing that with the votes? I think that's where my uncomfortability is lying right now.
Question's been called.
I was going to say the question has been called is the motion, and we are voting on a motion. And so you can vote the motion up or down. Okay, Vivian.
You need a second for call the question.
Is there a second to call the question?
So moved.
All those in favor of calling the question? Yes. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you, Tessa. Okay.
Ready?
Yes.
All right. 2 seconds. Sorry. McCoy? Nefflin?
No.
West?
No.
Watts? Yes. Love?
Yes.
Lefkowitz? Abstain. Wade?
Yes.
Harden?
Abstain?
Jester?
No.
No. We didn't get it.
What was the vote? Call it out.
4 yeses and 3 noes and 2 abstentions.
Okay. I thought she was going to clarify something. Okay. Before I declare motion fails, when people abstain, what does that mean? Just so we can be clear, do they not count in the vote, or just since we have quorum? I just want to be clear for the record.
Yeah, they're not voting.
Okay.
Their vote doesn't count.
Okay, perfect. I just want to make sure that everyone understood that. Okay. All right. The motion fails. Do we have any other motions for interim?
I move that we consider Mr. Thrillkill.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any discussion?
Madam Chair, just to clarify, with the same provisions as we noted with the previous motion, that delegated employment terms would be to HR and Finance, I assume?
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Nefflin, Do you have something, or your mic is just still on? Okay. Okay, no, that's perfectly fine. I don't want to miss anybody. All right, are we ready for the vote?
I have a question, I apologize.
No, you're good.
So this goes to Commissioner West. So are we going to go through a vote of all three and then potentially end up in the same place? Or do we consider what some of the discussion was previously, in that, is there an opportunity over the next week with HR having a direct conversation and process with the three? And then, I hate to say this, we reconvene in a week to finalize the interim. If there are enough questions that need to be addressed relative to an interim, and vetting and clarification and review of job descriptions, et cetera.
That can be the will of the commission, but I will not be here next week.
Mr. Thrillkill has received his job description, right, Director Hall? Yeah. Yes. And Dr. Thrillkill has received the job description.
He has received the job description.
And what he's kind of getting into.
Yes.
Thank you.
So essentially, HR is picking the interim director? So HR is picking the interim director? Is that what we're doing?
No, I think we're voting on a potential candidate.
That's how you see it.
Well, I mean, that's.
Are we ready for the vote?
Well, no, we're still talking, Commissioner Love. I mean, I hear what you're saying. I think we're kind of having that train wreck that I think a lot of us are feeling that this may be. It might be the best option to just get the potential candidates that have expressed interest and have them vetted by HR and come back to deliberate. Okay, well, vet all of them, rather than, respectfully get an email saying, hey, here's some candidates, let's vote on them, which is how we got all three candidates, or at least two candidates. I don't know when we found out about Thrillkill, but I mean, if we're put in a situation where we're going to have to vote on somebody today, I mean, my vote's clear, but I don't like it. I don't like the way we're doing this.
Madam Chair, may I offer, just for your consideration, I'm again trying to solution and trying to hear all of you guys. I don't know, it sounds like you've got, HR can vet them, right? But then we'd just be offering back an opinion that likely probably doesn't look much different than probably the organic experiences you've had with their kind of two leading candidates. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't any kind of legal provision that would be problematic with it. So my apologies why I checked that with legal. But would it suit the commission saying we'd like to extend an offer for preferred candidate one, and if unable to reach successful terms with candidate one, to reach out to candidate two to try to negotiate successful terms and delegate that authority to HR? And then that way, I feel organically what you guys are all struggling with is you've got two highly qualified candidates. You feel like each motion's kind of pitted against the other, and it's not really fair, or frankly, I think commiserate with kind of your strong feelings about both. So maybe for your consideration, possibly if you guys wanted to entertain a motion to say that Metro, we'd like to extend an offer of employment and prefer to offer this candidate first, and if those are unsuccessful terms, to offer to this second candidate, because it does feel like from a consensus of the commission members, there are two kind of leading candidates here.
All right. Thank you for your comments. I'll go to Commissioner Watts and then Commissioner Lefkowitz.
Perhaps the answer might be that we vet both the candidates in a public meeting. I'm sorry, all three candidates in a public meeting with the same questions, and that we make a decision, and then we refer it back to you to deal with the mechanics. If they're willing to do this. I think that gives us all an opportunity to hear answers the same questions, not different questions, the same questions that we can agree upon and put them there, because ultimately they're going to be the voice and the face of this commission moving forward for a short period of time in turbulent times. And I think that makes sense as well.
Thank you. So just a reminder, we do have a motion on the floor. Commissioner Lefowitz.
I forgot what I was going to say.
Oh, yes, go ahead, Commissioner.
I'll just say, on the previous, am I allowed to speak to the previous vote? Is that?
Just go ahead.
Well, I just want to say, it would be helpful for me to have more time to clarify a potential conflict of interest, just through my work now. So I do have some hesitation in voting. So I'll just say that. So that for me personally would also be a reason to kind of figure this out, so.
I seconded the motion so we could get to conversation, but Commissioner Watt's suggestion, if they're willing to do it, is really what I wanted to hear. I think that seems very prudent.
Commissioner Lefowitz.
I remember now. I also think that if one of the goals of this is to provide stability for the staff, that hearing directly from the candidates would do so, because this is the first time that they've heard, I believe, these names. And if we could do this quickly, I think it could happen quickly. And we are all in support of staff right now and can continue to be in the interim. So I'm just guessing that they might, I don't know, that might be a good solution.
Go ahead.
I'm gonna withdraw the motion, hoping that we can have this conversation.
Did you second it?
I withdraw my second.
Okay. Attorney Macy.
Hi. And reflecting on the vote count that you all just had for the motion for Dr. Coleman, 9 folks are here and voted. 2 of you abstained. 4 voted yes, and 3 voted no. So in effect, you voted in favor of Dr. Coleman. So that motion passed.
Well, that's kind of what I was going to. I wanted to make sure before I said what I said that, what did that mean by the 2 abstentions? Did that mean that they did not count, or what did that mean? So, because my understanding was that the motion carried, but I do not understand all of Robert's rules.
And I misunderstood your question. I was fumbling through my Robert's Rules book there on the front row. So with the 2 not voting, that skewed the number. Earlier we said the number was 5 because there are 9 of you here. And for that motion, that was true. But with the abstention, the number was 4 and not 5. So the motion for Dr. Coleman passed. That is who the commission voted to be their interim director for the time being, assuming she is willing and able.
And with that, I wonder if we need to do the revote, because I'm not sure everybody understood what the abstention would do. Hey, I'm waiting for my candidate to come along to vote in favor.
So Ms. Macy, if you can come back to the hot seat for a moment, just so procedurally, we just know where we are and what's going on. So this is why I asked if we should have just called the roll and let people say who they wanted. But I understand that it was cleaner to do it this way because I knew this would happen. But it's cleaner to do the motion, yes. But if we could have just said 1, 2, 1, 2, or whatever it is, that probably would have been cleaner. But since a motion was made, a motion was voted on in the affirmative, we have a commissioner who says they did not understand what an abstention would mean. Procedurally, what happens next if that commissioner needs to make, what do we do next? Let me ask that. If there's someone who thinks they did not understand they vote, would someone who voted in the affirmative have to recall the vote, if that makes sense?
So if the majority of the commission wants to rescind that vote, you all can do that by vote, if that's the will of the commission.
And it would have to be someone from who voted in the affirmative to make that motion?
Correct.
Okay. And so the people who voted in the affirmative are, do you have that, Vivian?
That I have McCoy, Watts, Love, Wade.
Okay. So,
May I ask a question?
oh yeah, go ahead.
And this is to Commissioner Watts. Is there any reason why we should do this? Take a revote?
I've been a parliamentarian for a long time in a number of organizations. I tend to always say no, but it can be done. I agree with Macy. So. But my personal opinion is no.
Thank you.
So I'll ask this, out of the individuals who voted in the affirmative, does anyone want to make a motion to recall or rescind our vote? Is there anyone who voted in the affirmative who would like to rescind their vote? I did not hear one.
And for clarification, you don't need to ask that of the people that abstained. Macy? You don't need to ask that of a person that abstained.
The folks that abstained did not vote in the affirmative, and typically it would need to be someone that voted in the affirmative.
Okay. So what we do from here is we will reach out to Dr. Coleman. I'm looking at you for next steps. Reach out to Dr. Coleman and let her know that you will be reaching out to her. I'm asking, I don't know, okay.
100%. I just
Okay.
need her information.
Okay.
I do not know. Yeah,
Okay.
I do not know her.
Commissioner West.
So just hearing Director Hall say that. So with Dr. Coleman, have references been checked? Things like that? I feel like this whole vote just went very sideways and I'm not sure. So
I appreciate that, but I do want to ask this question, and it's always the will of the commission. The vote is going to be how the vote is going to be, but if we pick someone internally, would you have those same questions?
yes,
Okay,
absolutely. It's the responsible.
Okay.
To me, that's the responsible way to go.
okay, just wondering, thank you.
Commissioner Love, I just want to say that I think when she meets with Metro, they will check her credentials and they will find sterling recommendations on her behalf. She's an outstanding candidate, and I wouldn't have voted for her if it wasn't so. So I think that questioning is good. I think the time constraints are what we're looking at. And we need to be moving. We don't need to be talking. Thank you.
All right, so the next thing on the agenda, oh, Commissioner West, do you have something?
I guess I'd like to go on the record just saying we didn't go through all three candidates, that's all. We ended up with just the first person.
Thank you. So the next thing we have on the agenda is chair's updates. And so one thing that I did receive that I did talk about it a little bit before is that while we were in our meeting here, I did receive an email, and just in case it was not sent out to all the other commissioners, I did forward that while we were in here, a letter from Mr. Singh's attorney. And so we can discuss that at our May meeting. We can make sure that is on the agenda, that we will discuss that letter and that response that we had. That's really the only other thing that I have for as essentially a chair's update. Our next meeting is May the 16th at noon, and it will be out on Murfreesboro Pike. Do we have any new or old business that we need to discuss? I thought I heard something earlier, but I'm not sure what that was. I'll go to Commissioner Jester and then Commissioner Lefowitz.
I was going to address the first paragraph of Counselor Holland's email. So I'll talk more about it next month, but I just wanted to say that at the last meeting, I did mistakenly mischaracterize what Attorney Holland's email said. And so what I should not have done was read that as quickly as I did and referenced it at all, since I hadn't read it thoroughly. So I was just going to apologize for mischaracterizing what Jamie said, and we can discuss that more next month.
Thank you for that. Commissioner Lefowitz.
I sent an email response this morning, which I just wanted to point out about some thinking about the audit that's happening and some outreach to grant recipients. So if you could just read that, and I think the grants committee, if there's further action to kind of take place on that or clarification or questions, it can be in that committee, but I just wanted to highlight that.
Commissioner Watts.
I've gotten some communiques from artists who've had issues around payments. I did contact finance, and they indicate they're working on these issues. What I would like to do for our next meeting is to get an update from finance on any issues that may have transpired, so that we have knowledge as commissioners about what's going on, because we're not being contacted and our staff is not being contacted. So just to bring us up to date.
Okay, Commissioner Wentz.
I just have one question. So since we've moved forward with interim director, assuming that she accepts, how quickly can she start?
That'll be one of the first questions I ask her. But just so you know, just so that the commission is clear, and staff, anybody else that's watching, I'll get her contact information, reach out to her, and start to negotiate terms which are consistent with Metro's employment provisions, a start date. I will work directly with the chair unless she designates someone else, just to kind of keep her informed, to make sure that we know when the person can start, to make sure that they accept and understand the job duties and functions, compensation within, funding availability and all kinds of other stuff. So we've got this part, but I will make sure I continue to work with the chair, communicate directly with the chair on anything that we're doing to make sure I'm lockstep with what we should be doing from the commission standpoint. But then hopefully more information can then be shared with you. But as soon as we have a much clearer picture, we're happy to communicate that with all commission members.
I'd also like to ask that the current staff, not on leave, but the current staff, be communicated to you and talk to you about this.
Absolutely.
I think that's really important.
Yes, agreed.
Chair, as one of the dissenting votes, I just want to go on record and say that my dissent was because I wanted more conversation around all three candidates and had nothing to do with the qualifications of Dr. Coleman, and Dr. Coleman has my full support as our current interim director.
I agree with Mr. Jester. I just wanted more time.
Chairman Love, I know you're going to be the point person for the commission, and once she is on board, would it be appropriate for you to meet and introduce her to the staff?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Before she just walks in cold.
Yeah.
Like, who is this lady?
Thank you.
100%.
And again, she may say no to this, right? She still has that right to do that, or to accept or not accept. So, Commissioner Harden.
Yes, I guess I don't see Jesse in the room anymore, but I want to thank him for sharing what he shared. And just an update for those of you interested in the CARE committee. I met with staff for a few hours yesterday, and we are preparing to meet again. So as we talk about a lot of this, I really hope that can be a space where we can listen to you all and you can be participating in this alongside us. So thanks.
All right,
Chair
thank-
Love,
Yes, go ahead. Yes,
the
ma'am.
location for the next meeting has not been confirmed. So just commissioners, please look out for my email, and the location on that, that invitation for next month.
Oh, for next month.
For May
Oh,
16th.
okay.
For May 16th.
Thank you so much. I'm just supposed to put it on my calendar on my own because that's what I thought, so, okay. So she said that the location for our meeting next month has not been confirmed, because I did say that it was gonna be up, on Murfreesboro Pike. Right. So if there is no other business before us, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor? All right. We are adjourned at 2:41.
This has been a service of the Metro Nashville Network. If you would like to see this presentation again, or for more information on this and other programs, visit nashville.gov.